Alright, let's talk about my favorite aspect of the Source engine, which is being able to simulate physics with our brush objects. We'll create what are called Physboxes, and use some constraints and constraint systems to show you how you can create some pretty cool structures and make destructible worlds for your gaming pleasure. Alright, let's use our block tool, and we're just going to create some ordinary brushes. Let's go ahead and get our Noesis prefab level to work from. And put our camera in there. Alright. Now with our brush tool, switch back to primitives block. Oops, shrink our grid down a little bit here. Get something to work with. And let's create a decent sized structure, but nothing enormous. What we're going to do is we're going to create just some stone blocks we can play with. So we'll do something decent sized. Let's give it texture, something other than just our dev texture. So we'll go to stone, stone floor. It's going to work. Create our block, and we're going to duplicate it a few times. So we'll just shift drag it. Maybe shift drag some to be on top. So we'll just duplicate this guy, push from right over there. And then to make it a little more interesting than just some square blocks, there's going to be some big blocks too. Maybe we'll just shrink some of these guys down a little bit. Check out some differences in scale. Let's just cut off with our clipping tool some edges here to make things a little more interesting when we start simulating them with the Havoc physics engine. So we'll cut off that edge there, maybe cut off something on here. Whoop. Undo that. Make sure we have our clipping tool going the right direction. There we go. Okay, something like that. You could add some more in there. Let's just duplicate this guy. Put him down on the ground and then make him a bit smaller. We'll try out. Same thing with a nice small object. Still could be stone if we want, or we could change the texture there. Be something else. Maybe be a wood. Just a wooden box or something. Yeah. One of these guys. Any of these. Whoop. Apply that. Okay. We can mess around with your fittings or whatnot. Okay, so right now we have brush geometry, just basic walls that we've created, like we have when we were creating our Counter-Strike level. But how do you make those physics objects? How can you be able to pick those up or push them around, or have them be able to fall on you? We talked about the Func breakable briefly there to make the wall be able to explode, but how do you do that with some physics as well? Maybe we want to push this on top of somebody. Well, the answer is the Func Physbox. It's a function entity, so we're going to select our brush, and we're going to tie it to an entity, and we're going to call that, or identify that class as a func underscore Physbox. Apply. Let's go ahead and do that to all our objects here. We have tie this guy to an entity, func Physbox, apply, next guy, entity, func Physbox. Now we could have done this earlier and then just duplicated it. That would have worked as well. So func Physboxes to all these guys. Just keep tying them to entities. Func Physbox. Okay. And our last guy, whose texture seems to be kind of screwy right now. Entity func Physbox. Apply. Okay. So now we got the func Physbox. Let's reapply the texture here, see if it stops blinking on us. Yeah, sure. Put this guy there. Alright. Hopefully that'll work out. Alright. Take a look. Alt Enter to bring up the object properties of our func Physbox. And let's take a look at what our key value options are. Now we have names, so let's go ahead and just name all these pieces because we're going to put them into groups and systems. So we'll just call these chunk 1 and chunk 2, chunk 3, and of course chunk 4. And if we want, we can name this guy chunk 5. Alright. Now we got our pieces named. Take a look at what else we got. Damage filter. We just talked about filters. Basically, we can go and assign a filter. If we placed a filter damage, we could name it and then choose it from our list to say only rockets are going to be able to destroy this, or only pistols or something like that. So for now, let's keep going down. Explosion, when we blow these up or break them, as it's called, we can assign a damage radius and a damage scale so that they actually hurt us. And then we could add another environment entity to actually create the visual explosion to go along with it. Let's see, we got prop data. You can select a prop data from this drop-down list. Basically, you have different types of objects. You have pottery, stone, glass, cardboard, metal, wood, and they're broken up into the size of pieces. So do you want little pieces of wood, little, large, medium, of all these different types. If you do select one of the prop data types, it will actually override some of the other values we'll talk about, or as the strength of that material, and it's the amount of stress we can put on it, and the way it behaves, the way it sounds, etc. So for now, let's just keep that at none. Go down. Strength is a big one. So these objects, now that they're Func Physbox, can actually break into gibs, into the little smaller pieces that we saw when we were working with glass. And we can adjust how much damage they take before they do explode or they pop in a gib. So let's just change that from 0, which means they will not break, to something like 60. After 60 units of damage, each of these guys will break. And we can select multiple ones at the same time, since they're all Func Physbox. Put them all to 60 in our strength, hit apply, and then individually, you'll see they're all still 60. Speeds us up. Okay, going down, we have material type, which is a big one now. If we were to inflict 60 points of damage onto this piece of stone here, it's going to break. What's it going to break into? Right now, it's going to break into glass, which wouldn't make much sense. So we come down to cinder block. Will make sense. We can change the way some of these others break if we want. Let's just go to cinder block for now. Also going to have something to do with the mass scale, depending on the size of the object. So we have pretty big hunks of stone that we're identifying as cinder blocks, so they're going to be really heavy. Something good to know. We probably won't be able to pick them up, but we should be able to knock them over. Gibbs directions, we talked about that, just the way the smaller pieces are going to shoot out. You can select damaging doesn't push it, so that when you damage it, it does or does not move. By default, if you damage it, it's not going to move, but we could turn that on, and now that we damage it, it would move slightly depending on the mass scale. Gib model is the model you're using for Gibbs. We use the default. Let's see, we have explosion magnitudes, kind of come up here with our explosion damage and explosion radius. If you have to actually give it a magnitude so that we'll do some explosive damage. Pressure delay, let's see what else we got here. We've got render effects. Impact damage type, that's when this thing damages you, what type of damage will it inflict, usually a blunt damage from something falling on you. Mass scale is important, so we can actually adjust the mass scale for our objects. The Source engine, the physics engine within Source Havoc is going to determine, based on the size of our entity and the type of material that we're assigning to it, how much it's going to weigh. So these are going to be, like I said, pretty heavy. We could cut them down. So our top object here, we could adjust the mass scale to 0.5 or 0.25. That's going to cut it in 1/4 of the mathematical mass scale that the engine will calculate. Some other override parameters. We have a level of health. So once we cause a certain amount of damage, we can override the motion ability of our physics objects. Yeah, let's check out the flags. We got a bunch of flags that we'll touch on here. Basically, you make your debris collide or not collide. The Gibbs can collide or not collide. Preferred carry angles. If you have an object that can be picked up, you can use the preferred carry angles to kind of keep them out of the player's view. Rotor wash is something that is generated by certain entities. You can select whether the fizz gun will or will not be able to pick it up. We can have it only break when we trigger it to break, not when we shoot it or when other types of damage are inflicted to it. We can break it when we just touch it, which would be kind of ridiculous for our stone wall. And break on pressure, so kind of physics pressure. If something is sitting on top of it, is it going to break? Right now, if we checked it for this box, it would just break immediately with this guy sitting on top of it. it's similar with immediately on physics. Any physics damage, say from the Phys cannon gun or something, would break it if we checked that flag. Okay, so let's just take a look at what's happening here when we run our game. We have these 5 objects all assigned to Func Physbox. These guys all have stone textures. They're set to stone. Let's actually change this guy. We have our wooden texture. So in our material type, we have all these guys set to cinder block. If we don't want them to be glass, we'll actually go wood. Make the most sense. We're going to save our level here. Let's save it as noesis underscore Physbox constraint. Save. Alright, so we've got our map saved. Before we actually run it, let's just adjust this piece so it doesn't just topple over with our angle as soon as we get in the game. So we use our vertex tool here, and we can select them in the 3D view, drag them, and maybe drag them in our front view here. Yeah, something more like that, a little solid, a little more of a base. Okay, I guess we should actually add a few other entities here before I get carried away. Let's go ahead and add entities. We'll add the Phys cannon, weapon, we can add a 357 too, good gun. And we'll add the Phys cannon. Phys cannon. And we'll want to add some ammo. Maybe item, ammo 357. A couple of those. And if we want, we can even add our suit. Just so we feel like Gordon. Okay, so there we go. Let's resave. Run our map. Let's see what happens with our 5 Physboxes. Okay, they look like just a bunch of brushes standing there. Got our Phys gun here. But if we shoot it with the Phys gun, oh, look at that. It's a pretty big piece. Just fall off the side there. And this guy, he's a little lighter, obviously. You can tell the difference in scale. Still too heavy to pick up, but he can be shot around much easier than this guy who just kind of sits there. That's because we affected his scale, his mass scale. He's a quarter as heavy as he should be as far as our physics engine is concerned. So you can see how much easier he bounces around than these guys. You can barely even move. We might not even be able to get it to topple over. Oh, there we go. If we hit it just right, maybe we can get him. There we go. So, pretty fun. You can climb up on top of them. And if we shoot him, we give him 60. Oh, wait, we didn't even play with this guy yet. Grab him. It's only going to take 60 points of damage. You can see how they sound different. We'll shoot it here. Some little wood splinters. Phys gun. I'm not sure. Maybe we might have left that guy on indestructible. Let's see. I think we gave these other guys 60 points of damage to break, so that should be about 3 shots. Maybe 2 shots with our 357 here. Oh, yeah, 3 shots. Yeah. And you see him break into these stone pieces there. One more shot. Boom. There he goes. And this guy, this wooden box we just left is indestructible. We just completely shoot it out there. But it's pretty cool. So we have brush objects that now can be physically simulated. They don't cast any shadows, but they will be physically simulated. All right.